So, hi, my name is Paweł Huryn. Welcome at the Serious Scrum Virtual Conference 2022. And as it was already introduced, I will tell you about continuous product discovery and the Scrum framework. But first, let me ask you a question. Are you ready? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So just to introduce myself very quickly, since 2014, I have been helping organizations and build great products and strong product teams. I live in Warsaw, in Poland. I'm 37 years old. In free time, I'm investing in stocks, training in a gym, and learning about the universe. So it's not only Scrum and not only product management. But let's go to the main point. So what we will find out today. So I will tell you what is the product discovery, why we need it at all, and in particular, why we need continuous product discovery. I will show you some techniques like opportunity solution tree and story map to identify opportunities, discover ideas, and validate assumptions. And I will also show you why it is important and how it leads to eliminating risk and waste in the process. I will be mentioning it during the presentation, but at the end I will summarize how we can combine continuous product discovery and working in Scrum. So in product, we should be obsessed with the why question. So let me answer, why do we need product discovery at all? You probably know this diagram. And I must say that Agile made an amazing job when it comes to delivering software in iterations so that we can inspect and adapt after every iteration, and we can keep asking the question, are we building the right thing? But also many people ask even other type of question. So for example, Eric Rice asked the question, are there customers for our product? Is there a market for the product? Do we even have the chance to fit the product market fit? And those are the questions that we ask before we start working on a product, because implementing product just to find out that nobody needs it can lead to a waste. So those those type of questions are asked before we start developing anything. Also, there is a great book, Jobs to be Done by Tony Alwick, in which he asked many important questions, but the most important for me was if the problems that we are trying to solve are the most important ones. So we may implement some ideas, we may deliver value for the customers, and customers may be happy, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something more valuable that we can be doing at the same time. So we need some ideas, some good ideas that we can place in the product backlog. And I would like to show you two quotes from Marty Cagan from Inspired. So there are two truths about product management. One truth is that at least half of our ideas are not going to work. So this is quite important statement. And even Marty Cagan said that good teams assume that at least 3/4 of the ideas won't perform as we hope. So if the half of the ideas or 75% of the ideas are not going to work, should we really implement them and just to find out that nobody needs it and customers do not care? The second quote is that even with the ideas that have potential, it typically takes several iterations to go to the point where they deliver the expected value. And once again, we can make those iterations by implementing the product, and it's in a lot of cases it makes perfect sense. But sometimes we may iterate before developers start working on the product. And why the ideas do not work? So there are 4 types of risks that every product manager needs to keep in mind. The first is that desirability. So it means that customers may not care about what we are creating. It might not bring any value to them. Another type of the risk is that even if we deliver something valuable, of the value, sorry, customers may not know how to use it. So it's the feature that nobody knows about. The third type of the risk is viability. So it means that maybe there are some technological constraints, feasibility, that there are some technological constraints like algorithms, like performance, like external systems that we are going to integrate with, and maybe during the process we will find out that it is not possible to implement. And the fourth type is viability. So it means that maybe our ideas are not aligned with the business strategy of the organizations, or maybe they will produce value for the customers, but not for the business. And in that case, we would like to make sure that our business can support them before we start working on a product. And before I show you an interesting graph, let me mention 2 persons. One is Jeff Patton, and the second one is Marty Cagan. And also others in the agile product space have been proponents of the approach, which is referred as dual track agile or dual track development. So it looks like this. Some time ago, I presented another variant of this picture, but maybe let's focus on this one right now. So as Marty Cagan said, there are 2 things that we need to do. We need to discover the product that needs to be built, and so we need to deliver this product to the market. So as it might suggest, there are 2 streams that run in parallel, and one is generating and if we look on the second quote, that the output of the product discovery is a validated product backlog, we can come to the conclusion that product discovery is a stream that generates ideas, validates some of them, and those are the ideas that we can work on in the next phase, that we can place in the product backlog. So what's exactly inside the product discovery? There are 2 groups of activities. One is exploring the problem space. So we need to understand the problems that we are going to we want to solve. We need to observe customers, analyze the data that comes from different sources. We would like to perform some customer interviews to understand what our customers are to care about. We would like to synthesize knowledge and map opportunities, and I will show you how we can do it in practice in a moment. And the second type, the second group of activities is exploring the solution space. So it means that we would like to come up with the ideas that may address those problems, those opportunities, and we would like to test. We would like to test those ideas. And to be precise, we are not testing ideas, but we are testing assumptions that are related to those ideas. And I will show this in a moment. What's interesting, it was shocking for me when I saw this statistic for the first time a few years ago, is that strong product teams test like 10, 20, or even more ideas every week. So as we can see, this product discovery is dynamic. In my opinion, it's also a bit messy sometimes. And the feedback loops in the product discovery may be much faster than in the development. There are some ways to organize it a little, like the sprint proposed by Jake Knipe, but this is only one approach. It's a good one, but still it's working in 1 week loops. So it is not always at inside the sprints as defined by Jake Knapp. We have many iterations, not one. So how does it look in practice, and how we can do it in our products? Sorry. So the first thing we need is the product trio. So the product discovery, this is not a job only for the product owner or only for the product manager. This is something that needs to be done by at least 3 persons. One is product manager, who is responsible for verifying if the solution is valuable for the customers, if it is viable for the business. There is a designer, and it is extremely important to focus on usability and UX before we start working on the product, because some companies in which I worked did it after the implementation. So basically developers implemented the product, and then UX designer's job was to make it beautiful. But honestly, it's like lipsticking a pig. So to do it correctly, we need designer before starting the work. We need to do it in front of the development. And we need engineer, so probably developer, which will bring the technical perspective. And what's extremely important is that every of these persons brings a different perspective, has different knowledge, looks at problems from different point of view. And that's actually a very good thing, because we need all those perspectives. From my experience, it's very common that good ideas came from engineers, from designers, not from product managers. And the product trio, this is the term, by the way, from the Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres. The product trio performs regular customer interviews. As Teresa Torres defined it, it should be at least once a week. This is the constant process. This is not something that we do, just to make it clear, the product discovery is not something that we do upfront and before the development. We do it in parallel. So in one stream, developers work on delivering and the items from the product backlog selected for the sprint, and have the product goal, have sprint goals. And at the same time, we generate ideas, validate some of them, not all of them. I will tell about it in a moment. And we need 3 perspectives: technical perspective, perspective of the designer, so the usability perspective, and product manager, which has a user perspective, so what is valuable for the users and what can work for the business. I recently heard Marty Cagan, who said that if one of these people is not present, we should cancel the interview. So this is so important to have all these people present. So when we perform customer interviews, we typically first want to understand the problems that our customers have. Of course, we start with some goal that can be expressed like objective key result, like decrease churn rate by 20%. Of course, it will be more detailed. And when we talk with the customers about the problems, it's so the example that I'm presenting is for the video platform. So let's say that we have Netflix, and the customer might say that they can't find anything to watch. And then we asked additional questions. We can use, for example, Toyota 5 Whys approach. So to keep repeating why before until we get to the root cause of the problem. So in this case, user may say that they can't figure out how to search for a specific show, or that, for example, they are out of the episodes of the favorite show. So we ask additional questions, why, until we build the until we go to the bottom layer. Additional technique that we can use is asking more profound questions, like how does it affect your life? what will be the impact on your life, on your career if we do not solve this problem. Why do you want to solve these problems, not others? So it may help us prioritize the problems. And in general, we should be very skeptical, because customers can sometimes tell us what hurts them, not always, but they in general cannot propose the solution. So we do not want customers to tell us how to solve these problems, what they would like to see in the product, but rather understand pain points, needs, desires, and then we will think about how to solve them. Also, customers very often generalize, and opinions are biased. So instead of asking general questions like what you don't like in our platform, we would rather ask about a specific situation, like tell me about the last time you had that problem, or the last time you tried to watch video, and what happened next, how did you solve the problem. Maybe someone helped you, maybe you used some tools or some workarounds. So that kind of questions are extremely important. We don't want customers to come up with ideas. And of course, then we can think about how to solve it. So this is the work for the product manager, designer, engineer. They can work separately. They can meet, exchange opinions, and it's ideating in general. And when we build the base of, let's say, 10, 20, 30 different ideas, we would like to start testing them. But once again, to be precise, we are not testing ideas, we are testing assumptions. So for example, the idea may be to display a search box or display recommendations, but we don't want to test displaying a search box, but there are some assumptions. One of the assumptions is that displaying a search box will help customer find something to watch. So it's connected with the top level problem. Another assumption may be that, oh, sorry, you don't see the pointer. So another assumption may be that if we help customer find something to watch, it will decrease the churn rate. So we can put this assumption and perform an experiment to validate or invalidate this assumption. And there are other questions that you can ask. I will share this presentation. So now maybe we don't need to go into the details, but yeah, I think I gave the examples for the two first, so that the displaying the search box will help people find something to watch, and that helping people find videos will decrease the churn rate. And another way to generate assumptions for our ideas is to create a story map. So just in short, the story map, it's the map when we map the steps of each actor, and so what is needed for the customer, for the user to get value from our solution. So for example, the very simple, and this is not the full story map, users go to the movies catalog, then system display recommendations, and the last step for the user may be to select recommended movie. Then of course we want to watch it, but I didn't want to complicate it too much. So once we create this type of story map, we can ask questions from different areas. So value or desirability. For go to the movies catalog, the assumptions may be that user wants to watch movies because this is a movies catalog, and maybe user prefers watching series. Another assumptions may be that user wants to watch movies on our platform. Maybe they are looking for a movies on YouTube, another type of movies. For select recommended movie, after displaying recommendation, the assumption may be that user wants to see recommendation. Maybe they don't care about recommendations, even if we display the best recommendations in the world. From the usability, the typical assumptions are that users will know how to use it, but designers also came up with more advanced assumptions, like user knows how to display movies catalog, or user knows how to use recommendations. And feasibility, typically we will ask if the technology supports, in this case, support our idea, this story map. So in this case, is that our technology allows creating algorithm that will display high quality movies for the user, and that it will be that the performance will be okay, so that user will not wait, for example, 10 minutes before the content is rendered. So let me go back to the previous screen for a moment, and if you imagine, after interviewing like 10, maybe 20 customers and mapping all these opportunities, and then generating ideas and generating assumptions, so we have an enormous tree, and of course we do not want to test everything because it would take ages. So the simple rule is that we would like to test only the assumptions that have high perceived value and that are risky. So for example, this algorithm, that's just an example, that the algorithm creating a reliable algorithm that will display high quality recommendations and it will work fast enough. It may be high risk assumptions, but if we do it, it has a high perceived value. So this is the assumptions that we would like to test. But maybe if there are some low risk assumptions, like here, we would like just to ship it without testing, without validating this idea. We can just select it for the implementation and then measure after delivering to the customers, or we can review it during the sprint review if we work in Scrum. Okay, you can read this in details later. There are also a lot of materials at the end of the presentation. So the last thing regarding opportunity solution 3 is that we do not want to prioritize solutions, like which solution is more important, displaying recommendations or displaying the search box. It doesn't make sense. What we should prioritize and what we should focus on is prioritizing problems. So which problems are the most important ones for the customer? I think it's an approach adapted from jobs to be done. So what are the most important problems that we would like to solve first? And then for the most important problems, we would like to generate maybe more ideas and look at them closer. And those are the opportunities, those are the problems that we would like to focus on. A common problem, common trap is the death cycle trap. It was first described by David Blunt. It was also reprinted in the build trap by Melissa Perry. So it goes like this, that no one uses our product. Then the product manager, who acts as a waiter, goes to the users and asks, hey, what do you want us to implement? They throw some features, some ideas, then the team implements those features. And the result is that no one used them. So this happens when there is no vision. PM just collects and waterfalls the requirements to the team, and in this case, the death of the product may be a real possibility. So it's extremely important, and this is also confirmed by my experience, that we should focus on what are the most important problems and to understand those problems and then think about the solutions. It doesn't mean that we should spend most of the time on the product discovery. On the opposite, I think that product discovery is like it's hard to say, 10, maybe 20% of, I do not have the exact statistic, but most of the time, actually, the team works on delivering, on creating the solution, not on the product discovery. But when we talk about the product discovery, we would like to focus on opportunities. We would like to focus on understanding the problems, not on thinking which idea is the most important one. And how we can test the ideas? The typical solution is using prototypes, and basically Marty Cagan calls prototypes any experiment that we can do in the product discovery phase. So according to Marty Cagan, there are 4 types of prototypes. One is low fidelity user prototypes, and this is the prototype that I use the most in my products. So this is very hard, very fast to do. It doesn't have many details like colors, like exact layout, but you can do it in 1 hour, maybe in 2-3 hours. You can modify it during talking with the customers or during the meeting. It's extremely fast, and it allows to validate, test different ideas, different hypotheses really fast. Another type of I personally use Balsamiq with my teams. This is the most important, the most common one. The other type of prototypes are high fidelity user prototypes. So this is the prototype where we have the prototype that looks exactly like the application, like it will look like. And every user prototype can be used during the interview. So you can also schedule a session with the users where you give them some task like, hey, dear user, can you find a movie? And then we observe how they interact with our prototype. Sometimes it's not user that is clicking, because not every tool allows to create clickable prototypes, but the user may point a finger and ask us to do something in the application, and then we can ask the questions. So this is prototyping. Another type of prototypes are feasibility prototypes. So this is something that the developers need to do, like spikes, like testing some algorithm, like testing integration with external systems. From my perspective, it makes perfect sense to put them into the product backlog, put them into the sprint backlog, because yeah, it's just convenient to have them. But I think this is not a must. It depends. And the last type of prototypes are live data prototypes. So this is what we implement the solution, but not all aspects of the solution. So for example, we implement only one screen without internationalization. So it means that there is only one supported language. Maybe there is no data validation. Maybe we do not put so much attention to testing or performance issues. But what's important is that we want to connect live data from the production system and test how users will interact with it. So sometimes it's used as A/B testing. Honestly, I did it once or twice, and it was invite only. So it means that we just selected users and they knew that it will be an experiment. And of course, we can mix different type of prototypes, like feasibility prototypes with user prototypes, and perform other types of experiments. Those are only examples what type of test we can perform. So I will be finishing in a moment. So continuous product discovery and the Scrum framework. Let me show you 3 quotes. One is from Marty Cagan, inspired, that the output of the product discovery is a validated product backlog. So it suggests that before product discovery, we do not have validated items that we can place into the product backlog. Another quote is from the Scrum guide that the product backlog is a list of what is needed to improve the product. If we have customer problems and some ideas how to solve these problems, I wouldn't call those ideas something that is needed to improve the product, because this is not validated. Maybe we don't even know if this problem will drive the expected business results. So I wouldn't place customer interviews, ideas that are on a very early stage in the backlog. And it's also worth taking into account that according to Marty Cagan, the strong teams test 10, 20 or more ideas every week. So it's an enormous number of ideas. For each idea, there are even more ideas that we generate but do not test. So it can be a mess if we put every idea that was discovered during customer interviews but is not validated, if we mix it with the things that we actually plan to work on. And the last quote is regarding the product, that we must have a clear boundary, known stakeholders, and well-defined users and customers. So in my opinion, when we talk about the initial product discovery, like there is no product and we just work on a business model, and for example, we create MVP, which is just a prototype, not there is no single line of code, for example. It's hard to say that our products has boundaries, because we are just creating those boundaries. We are just defining what will be our users and what is our unique value proposition. So in that case, we do the initial product discovery, but the product is not fully defined. And also continuous product discovery has a little different artifacts. So we have customer interviews, which so for example, if we interview like 5 customers every week, we want to log the insights, some opportunities, some memorable quotes, some facts about the customer to browse it later. We have an enormous number of opportunities and this big solution tree with the problems that were identified during those interviews. And we perform experiments, so we need some log for the experiments and the results. And we need to connect those experiments with the assumptions. So there are a lot of stuff being created during the product discovery, and in delivery we have different artifacts. We have things that we know that need to be done to improve the product. We have items selected for the sprint together with the product goal and actionable plan to deliver those items. And we have an increment. So let me connect the dots. That's just my opinion. So a product discovery generates ideas for the product backlog. This is also according to Marty Cagan, but I do not fully agree with the quote that I presented previously, that the product discovery results in a validated product backlog. It's a quote from Inspired, but if we listen closely to what Teresa Torres says and others, we do not want to validate every every assumption. We do not want to test everything. We only want to test the most riskiest assumptions. So product discovery generates ideas. Some of them are tested, others maybe not tested. And this is the source of ideas for the product backlog. The product discovery is messy and dynamic. So the feedback loops may be extremely fast, and it sometimes happened that when I work with Balsamiq during the customer interview, we modify the low fidelity prototypes during the interview and show some different version to the customer. And sometimes during we have another interview in 2 days, and before this interview we need to modify our prototype just to ask additional questions and validate some other hypotheses. So it's dynamic, it's messy, but the good thing about product discovery is that it consumes a similar amount of time every week. So if you like velocity and you like tracking it for some reason, I'm not a fan of velocity, but if you are, it shouldn't affect velocity from sprint to sprint, because this is something that we do on a weekly basis. And when it comes to the product trio, there is an engineer, but in Scrum we have the group of developers, probably in most teams more than one. So they do not have all participate in those meetings, but at least one person. It's really helpful when this one person, it can rotate. So it doesn't have to be always the same person when they can interact with the customer and bring the technical perspective, but also understand the customers and then bring this knowledge to the team. And it really helps making decisions during the sprint. So I draw it like this. So there is the product discovery. We have ideas. We generate some of the ideas. We validate for some of the ideas. We validate assumptions, the most riskiest ones, and we can place it into the product backlog. Of course, if you want to place all the ideas in the product backlog, it might be okay. I won't stop you. But in my experience, I tried it once, and it was messy. It was like 75% of the backlog were some experiments, and most of them were never selected. So it didn't work for me. There are some recommended materials. So the first one is Opportunity Solution Tree, the whole article about the Teresa Torres approach, and it is also described in Continuous Discovery Habits. The Product Death Cycle Trap article, where you can read more about why we shouldn't allow customers to design the solutions. There is a Silicon Valley product group so this is the company of Marty Cagan, where Marty Cagan described in detail different type of prototypes. The hypothesis prioritization canvas that I presented on one of the screens, you can download it as a PDF from this page. There is also a great video of Teresa Torres when it's about 1 hour, and she describes the modern product discovery, in particular continuous product discovery. I was expected to find that the Jobs to be Done by Tony Ulwick is currently available for free. You can buy the book, but there is a free audiobook on the official Tony Ulwick's site. So here is the link to this site. And some people, so one thing I would like to add, that some people would like to apply heavy, very prescriptive processes to product discovery. In my opinion, product discovery is more messy, it is more dynamic, and design thinking is bullshit, at least according to Natasha Yen. This is a great video you can find on YouTube, in which Natasha Yen explained what is the difference, what is exactly design thinking about, and why, if we do it in a very prescriptive way, it doesn't make sense. So it's creative, it's dynamic, it should be messy a little bit. Also, there are some recommended books. Some of them were already mentioned, like Inspired by Marty Cagan. So you can learn about prototypes, about product discovery. And the next one, I will jump to the continuous discovery habits, because Teresa Torres referenced a lot, makes a lot of references to the Inspired. And here you can read in depth about continuous discovery process. Jobs to be done by Anthony Alwick. This is an extremely interesting book about how to define and prioritize customer needs. One of those questions that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, escaping the big build trap. This is a book about why we should not allow customers to design solutions. So once again, we should focus on problems and prioritizing problems and understanding customers' problems in depth, and only then think about ideas and testing some of them. Sprint, this is a very very specific technique of the product discovery, but this is a good one. So I can recommend this book. And if you want to define your goals as OKRs, this is the #1 book that you should read.